Welcome to the sideboard here at the Star City Games Season 1 Invitational, part of SCG Con Summer in Roanoke, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard and Carnox. I am Nick Miller alongside Team BCW's own Dylan Hand. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Nick?
Pretty good. We're here at the Invitational. We're talking standard, and you're playing a version of the mass manipulation deck.
Yes.
Originally kind of previewed and debuted by Sam Black, but it has gone through some iterations. We've added white to the deck, and it's kind of interesting because we were talking before the cameras went live. It's been a long time since green mid-range decks were a thing.
Yes, it has been.
And it's nice to see again.
Yeah. It's fun casting Llanowar Elves again. Even in a Chain Whirler world, it's nice playing casting it.
So we're playing big mana. That's the name of the game here. Sam's original build of the deck was just maxing out on all these, stealing your opponent's cards, going up high on mana, and that's still the name of the game, but we're doing it in sort of a different way.
Yes.
Take us through this deck and what exactly we're doing and what all we can do with it.
Right. So the core of the deck is the mana engine with all of the 12 mana creatures, the Llanowar Elves, the Paradise Druid, and the Incubation Druids, and then Nissa is kind of like the, that really turbocharges your mana to be able to cast huge Hydroid Crasises, and then obviously massive mass manipulations and entrancing melodies. And then, so the white splash is there to kind of shore up the red matchup a little bit, because the Simic manipulation deck, Sam Black's deck, was a little weak around the edges. You didn't really have a lot of good life gain options and things like that. So when you splash white, you get access to Shalai, which is fantastic. You can't get burned out of games. Tolsimir, a card you can ramp out into, that gains you life and kills their small creatures. And then Lyra in the sideboard. And then, the other big white creature, the infamous Teferi Time Raveler. So, you get to play at instant speed, they play at sorcery speed. And the big thing about being able to play at instant speed with this version of the deck over the Simic version is you can cast mass manipulation at instant speed. I've cast mass manipulation 5 times today, and 4 of the 5 times have been at instant speed. So, for massive numbers, 2, 3, or 4.
Already a good card, but even better when you get to attack with the creatures immediately and use all of the planeswalkers and just do bad things to your opponent.
Yeah, so, beginning my testing at the beginning of this week, I started actually with the Nissa Nexus deck that top 4 Kansas City last weekend, because I love Nexus of Fate. Quickly learned that deck can't beat aggro decks, so I was off it for a little bit. Played some Gruul, kept running into this deck, kept getting smashed. And I'm like, okay, this shell feels really good, let's try it. So, at the end of the day, it was kind of, Nissa is busted, we're going to play Nissa in some fashion. How are we going to build the deck? And this was, what I came to.
Right, once you kind of fall on Nissa, the question is, what are we going to do with all the mana?
Right.
Obviously, the mass manipulation is one thing, but Hydroid Krasis, blast from the past of the old Sultai mid-range decks.
Right.
Doing bigger and better things in this deck.
Yeah, you're casting that puppy for, 14, 15, 16, and Sultai's happy to cast that card for 6. That's chump change. Those are rookie numbers, so to speak.
You got to get those numbers up.
You got to get those numbers up. So, and the other thing is with Shalai, Shalai has that 6 mana ability on her. It's not uncommon to have 12 mana to activate it twice in one turn. And you turn your Llanowar Elves into 2/2s and 3/3s. And
right, when you get to actually use these extra abilities that kind of look like throwaway text and make them relevant, that's when you're doing big things.
Right, of course.
One question, a lot of these decks revolved around Tamiyo. Your deck, no copies, it appears.
Right. Tamiyo, there's that, Tamiyo's kind of there as that grindy element. We first saw Tamiyo in the Nexus decks, to be able to find Nexus faster. Then we saw it in the Command the Dreadhorde decks, to obviously mill over your library to find Command the Dreadhorde. This shell already grinds in so many other ways so much better. And using mass manipulation, that's how you can control the board. You don't need something like Tamiyo to find, there's no one specific card you're really looking for, I guess, in this deck either.
Right.
So, some versions played that, like I was talking about the Simic Nexus deck, that it was still a Nissa deck. That deck had 4 Tamiyos in it as well. But, you have an end game there of looping Nexus forever. This deck just wants to, find mass manipulations, You can only grind so hard before you can't beat the red deck, right? So.
All right, so with this deck coming into this weekend, what are you targeting and what are you fearing? Because a lot of the hype coming into this weekend was the Esper Hero deck and the Phoenix decks.
Right, the Phoenix decks, yep. Well, so the real talk was in this Twitter discourse, with Magic Twitter discourse, was play red. Someone tweeted, you're never too good to play red, stuff like that. And then, playing arena all week and stuff like I dropped probably 100 matches this week. I took the week off before the event. I played against red probably 8 times in 100 matches, and then I tried playing red myself and I couldn't buy a win to save my life. So it really feels like that deck's popularity is a little overblown. So against the matchups you described, what did you say, Phoenix and then the Esper decks? The Esper decks can't beat Nissa, really, a lot of the time. They really can't. Mass manipulation, gaining control of their Teferi, they get to play they get this, commanding board presence and you just take it.
Right.
And they're not pressuring you in any way, shape, or form. The way this deck loses is getting pressured. And Esper doesn't do that. And then
so you're looking to kind of fade the red and the white decks that are low to the ground, or
yeah, and even the red deck, you drop Nissa early enough, and it creates a nice blocker. Shalai is great, Tolsimir is great. If you draw a million mass manipulations against them game 1, you're probably going to get run over. But you have a standing chance against it. And like I said, I played red against this deck, and I was like, oh, I should crush it, and I wasn't at all.
Right.
So. The Phoenix deck, I would actually, if there was one deck, it would probably be the Phoenix deck because they're just loaded up with flyers.
Right.
And you have 2 Shalai, and that's really it. If you cast a big enough Krasis, you can probably be good enough. But Nissa's not very safe. 2 Phoenixes, kills Nissa. So, and if Nissa dies, you don't really do very much. So.
Okay. Other cards, we talked about the payoffs being Krasis and mass manipulation, but Entrancing Melody just kind of hanging out here too.
Yeah.
A 1-of ability to steal something also can swing these games.
Yeah, that card has been really good in every Mana Dork mirror. Because a lot of the time, if you're on the play and you lead on Paradise Druid or something, and then they play an Incubation Druid, and you just take it on your turn 3, then you're turbocharging your mana a ton and slowing them down. Because the Nissa mirrors, it is whoever resolves Nissa first is probably going to win the game. So it is crucial that you do that. So you should never be afraid to, just gain control of their creatures. And then I played my teammate, Rosmarium round 2. I took his Nullfied Feryx and beat him over the head with it. So, it can really do it all, All
right, we'll move on to the sideboard here. Pretty stock. We've got 4 Brontodon, 4 Negate, 3 Thorn Lieutenant, 2 Lyra, and then the big one, the River's Rebuke.
Yeah, so if any of you at home remember Teamer Energy Mirrors from a year and a half ago, River's Rebuke was the ultimate green mid-range trump card. And now that we're back in a green mid-range world, like you said before, just having access to 1 copy of that card. And again, you can cast it at instant speed with Teferi. I did that already today. It was nuts. So just 1 copy of that card to hedge for those mirror matches, because the rest of my sideboard isn't really tuned for the mirror match, so to speak. But the rest is. So.
Right, it looks like Lyra and Thorn Lieutenant against the aggro decks.
Yep.
And then we have negates for the control decks.
And any Nissa mirror, actually.
Okay.
Because every Nissa deck is either a Nexus deck or a mass manipulation deck. So you want to be countering Nissa and those cards. So you bring in negate in every mirror as well.
Right. I have to assume Brontodon's good against red as well.
We've got a 9 or 10 card sideboard. There's actually supposed to be a Tolsimir chilling here too. I have 2 Tolsimirs in the main and a 3rd in the sideboard. Okay. So we have a 10 card sideboard for red too. So if game 1 isn't so good, we're a little bit better post board.
All right. So you're off to a 3-0 start, correct?
Yep.
How do you like the deck now that you got some reps within it in the tournament?
Really good, and the thing is, as I've hit the expected metagame, I really expected people to be playing these green decks and Esper, and that's exactly what I've ran into so far. And Gruul. I think Gruul was kind of the actual aggro deck people were going to show up with over red. And like I said earlier, I played Gruul this week and kept getting thrashed by this deck. And I played against 2 Nissa decks and a Gruul deck so far, and I've only dropped a game. So.
Got to feel nice when the testing and the preparation starts to pay off, right?
Yes.
All right, well, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard, Dylan.
Yep.
Thanks for filling us in on the Bant mass manipulation deck. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Roanoke.